all over from what I was saying in the other live that ended and jump in right here. So, welcome to Bridging the Gap with Your Inner Child. My name's Asia. I am a courage advocate. I am a soul inspired mentor, and I like to specialize in memory recovery. And I'm also a jewelry artist. Many of you may know me as a jewelry artist. I actually make and teach jewelry making. My company, I guess you want to call it. I do that under Asia Rain Designs, and I love doing that. That is something that I just really enjoy. I also have a podcast. I'm a podcast host, and the podcast is called Letters to the People. You can find that page, you can find that website. It's letterstothepeople.com. So I'm kind of really expanding a little bit, and this is my stepping into the expanding on the kind of on the mentorship side of my life. I've been doing this for, oh gosh, memory recovery I've been working on for at least 20, 22 years, and working in both past life memory recovery, like, past life regression kind of thing, and then current life memory recovery as well. So I'm really glad you guys are here. Thanks again for being patient. Like I said, I had a moment there of the live. It didn't look like it was actually being recorded, and so I'm not too sure what happened before, but now we're on, we're live, and we're going. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about bridging the gap between yourself and your inner child, and why that is so important, and how you can actually create that relationship between yourself and your inner child. So one of the things that I felt was really important is um, kind of framing this so that you, if you've heard similar things before, you kind of know what you're working with. So you've heard about shadow work, and basically shadow work and inner child work are the same thing. So sometimes shadow work has a bit of a negative connotation. It's got a bit of a negative, I don't know, ting to it, I guess, because you think of your shadow as something that it's keeping all the dark secrets. It might be there to take your legs out from underneath you. It takes a lot of work. It can surprise you. It's full of things that you don't want to see, that you're afraid of. And I'm going to tell you, it is the same thing. Not that you have to fear it, walk away from it, or straight arm it, but we've done that. What we've done in essence is had to, really, because this is the way our brains work. This is the way we actually keep ourselves in a place where we can live and continue to live, but we will actually repress memories. We'll actually put memories away, or traumatic experiences away, because we're not able to in the moment process them. So they're still there. It's still stored, and it gets different titles like shadow work and inner child work. And there's probably some other things out there too. I just know those two as the main ways that I have looked at this work. So the reason this work is so powerful and so important is because if you think about this, we're fractured. We have we've got these crystallized emotions, we've got these crystallized experiences that are just sitting in our mind and in our body, actually, as trapped memories and trapped energies that really are not helping us live in our optimal manner. They create bumps in the road, or they even create blocks and walls that we just don't even know how to get around or punch through. And so making efforts to have a relationship with this inner child, or doing your shadow work, is really, really important. It's the optimal way, in my opinion, to bring yourself in alignment and to live a life that is more unified and more authentic, more sovereign, less influenced as by outside forces. You're able to be more decisive from an authentic space. You're able to know what your true values are, what lines up in here, versus kind of pulling from everything outside without discernment. And just kind of being, blown around a little bit, kind of just having your boat rudderless, right? Or just partially being able to steer your own life. Um, I know that for me, what was really kind of a breakthrough, all of this happened for me um, when I got into therapy and I began to uncover past memories of this lifetime. The thing that happened, the precursor to that, was when I first met my inner child, and it was a surprising experience. Um, so I'll tell you about that. I'd scheduled an appointment with a friend that was doing kind of a, well, what was it called? It was kind of a meditation. It wasn't necessarily meditation. It was a one-on-one, and it was a guided meditation. And the goal was to go in and meet yourself. And I thought, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I want to do that. So I went to her place and really was unfamiliar with any of this. And I laid down, and she's like, okay, we're just gonna relax, and I'm gonna take you on a guided meditation. And the goal is to meet your inner child, or to meet part of yourself that wants to talk to you. And I thought, that's great. I love it. So as she took me in, I'm going down this path, going into a garden, and I get to a place where I see this little girl, and she's in this white dress, and the setting was really beautiful. There were butterflies, and there was, these big trees, and there was this, bushes. It was just green and lush and just beautiful. Like, it was really a beautiful garden. And as I walked over to this little girl, she had her back to me, and she was sitting on the ground. And so I kind of walked around the side, and I said, hey there, what are you doing? What you got there? And I could see as she was focused down and looking at something, that as she was just kind of, in between, like as she was just sitting there on the ground, and I could see that there were caterpillars there, and those woolly caterpillars. And I thought, oh my gosh, those are so cute. I bet she's just totally loving this, right? So I got a little closer and a little closer, and I said, hey there, what you got? What you got there? Do you want to show me? And she turned her face to me, and I could actually see me. I could see that it was me, probably about 5 years old. And it didn't take long where all of a sudden her face changed, and it wasn't pleasant. Her face changed into this kind of a ravenous dog looking thing, where she just kind of, like, I don't know, like, it was a morph. She kind of morphed into this bit of a werewolf kind of face, where she lashed out, and she just snapped at me and made this noise, like, like a growling dog, and it's like, don't come near. And then she switched back into this cute face and turned back to the caterpillars, and I was like, whoa. Well, okay. Met my inner child. Met her. That was weird. And I was relating this. I was talking to the gal. I was still in this meditation, and I was like talking out loud. We were recording it, and she says, "Wow, looks like you've got some work to look into here." And I'm like, "Do I?" I didn't even know what that meant, but it came back out, and I was like, "Wow, what an interesting experience." And then it wasn't maybe about a year later is when I started formal therapy. So there was kind of a gap there between meeting this inner child and actually working with that inner child. It was clear that from that experience that there wasn't a lot of trust there. And I think that's one of the most important things I want to share with you guys is, you need to understand, and we all need to understand, that we've got to create a relationship, and we've got to create a relationship with our inner child and with our inner children that is based on trust. So I'm going to get into how I did that and give you some tips on how you could do the same thing. But I want you to understand why it's that way. Now think about when a child, or even an adult for that matter, but we're talking children. When a child doesn't feel heard, doesn't feel they matter, when their default is to being talked over, they are going to shut down and they're not going to offer anything. And I know that you've seen this before, and I know that we've probably, if you have children, we've been guilty of doing that to our own children. You're ready to rush through something. I remember the what is it? The example that I like to show myself, that I like to give myself in this was, I remember with my oldest son, he was tying his shoe, right? And I could see exactly, he was having trouble on the tying the shoe thing, and he wanted so badly to do it himself. And I wanted so badly to get out the door because we were late or going to be late, and there was really little, if no, room for the patience to allow that time to tie the shoe, to have it be a positive experience. I just saw what needed to be done, and I just kind of jumped in there and like, here, let me do it for you, and so I did it. What that demonstrates is A, he's not capable. B, I don't see him as a capable individual. And D, then he learns to just like, well, then I'm not going to try, right? So translate that over to an inner child that has a message, has something that has happened, that is traumatic, crystallizes that, internalizes it, freezes in time right there, and you don't want to know about it. Like, it was traumatic, so you automatically, and with the hormone systems, like our chemical system that go on when we have traumatic experiences happening, it naturally does that. We naturally put those things aside or lock them in time. But what we don't realize is that they never leave. We are designed to process energy. Humans are designed to have energy and emotions flow through us. And so when we don't allow that, even if as a child, you just, or as an adult, like, you get offended, you feel like you're going to cry, and you're shoving it down, and you're not going to cry, and you're going to be brave, and all of that stuff. At some point, that got shoved down has to come out, because, like I said, that is how we are designed. We are designed to actually process and to move things. We're designed to have our bodies move. Anyway, so if you have done this to your inner child, which we all have, then it stays, and it stays locked in there. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect your life right now. In fact, it is something that affects your life so profoundly that this is why you run into repeated patterns. This is why you run into negative inner talk. This is why you run into destructive behaviors. This is why you have a particular outlook or perspective that can be less than optimal in your own progression of a healthy human being. It's because we've locked those emotions away. We've locked those experiences away. So because we're built to do this, and our inner children want to do this, it seems like it would be kind of a natural thing for us to kind of get together and, kind of go forward and do it. But it doesn't necessarily work like that. So your inner child has a keen awareness. It's present right now. As soon as you signed up for this course, your inner child was like, that just happened. And you may find that you have just demonstrated to yourself, in ways that may be unconscious for sure, that you're interested in bridging that gap, in coming closer together and actually having a communication. So it would be optimal if that communication opening is flowing and has a pretty good relationship already formed. One of the things that actually helped me create a very real relationship with this inner child was to recognize and realize there's more than one. I am every age. And so once I realized that, once I actually went into that space of recognizing and realizing that I've been an infant, I've been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to where I am now. I'm 55 years old. I I found it really effective to look at this inner child as inner ages. And some of those inner ages will have experiences that cross over and touch each other that are similar. So, when it comes to bridging the gap with all of those ages, you need to remember that it's not a linear situation. You don't It's kind of funny, interesting, I called it bridging the gap, like there's going to be a straight line, you just pop over to one side and she can pop over to your side. And in some ways that is actually the truth. You can it There is a communication line, but it's not linear. It's actually really fluid. It's actually it's actually really creative in a way, because you want to think about what a child's mind is. We might be frozen in time, but she still has a perspective that is still childlike. And so there's a language that you guys need to start creating together, and there's a trust level that needs to be created together, and there's a relationship that gets to be developed together. So your goal here is actually discovering yourself. Your goal is to learn each other's language. Your goal is to have a commonality of respect. And as you do that, more information comes forward. So let me tell you about an experience that I had, just to kind of show you how important and how really powerful and effective my communication has been with my inner child. Now, when I was in therapy, the way I began every session, as I started getting into it, like this, when I first started, I was going in to see what would come up, and hypnotherapy was the way that I actually recovered all of the memories that I had. I was in therapy for about 8.5 years, recovering highly traumatic experiences that had to do with satanic ritual abuse and human trafficking and medical experimentation and things like that. So they were heavy, heavy memories. But I didn't know that that's what I was after when I began. When I began with it, I just knew that I was depressed. I had this huge depression going on, and my goal was to pull myself out of this depression, like figure out what the root of this depression was. Like, wow, sudden onset depression, and there's a story behind what happened there. It was just, in fact, I'll just tell you, it was simple. I was building the second house that for our family. Finished building that house, and as soon as I was done with that project, this depression just kind of descended upon me, and it was almost as if I dissociated, so I could step outside myself and I could see how depressed I was, and I couldn't do anything about it. Like, I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was going on inside of me. So my goal, when I found the therapist, my goal was just to, like, let's figure out what this depression is. I have no idea where this is coming from. So in my innocence, and also with my intention was to get to the root of my depression. My inner child, my shadow work, my subconscious, whatever you want to call it, that entire part of me went, oh, cool, this is awesome. We want to get rid of all of this heavy, heavy baggage, because it's affecting my life adversely. It's affecting my body adversely. It just hadn't manifested in a lot of different ways, but the depression is what got my attention, right? So I was on board subconsciously. I was on board consciously. I just didn't know where we were going to meet, right? So I went into these sessions, and the goal was to find out what the root was. You're doing the same thing, because the inner child, these inner children, have all the keys that are going to release you from these behaviors and these ailments, physical ailments, mental confusion. They've got the keys to all of this. All you have to do is ask. And I'm telling you honestly, they want to get rid of it and express it just as badly as you may want to get rid of that behavior that is just driving you crazy, or that relationship that keeps swinging around and you're just like, why am I bumping up against this again? I don't get it. Where is this coming from? Well, what you have is an inner child or children that have a particular block or particular trauma or particular secret, I like to call it secrets, particular secret that they're wanting to express, but they can't. It's trapped. You haven't opened up a space for that. And a lot of times we don't open up space for that because it is so scary that once you actually, it's kind of like the dam breaking. Once you take the finger out of the dike, then there's other ones attached to it and it just starts flowing, which is good news and bad news at the same time. Like, you need to be prepared that when you step into this relationship, you are going to be guaranteed healing. Promise you 100%. You are going to be authentic, you're going to be sovereign, you're going to be honest, but you have also got to allow for that cascade of what's been keeping you in your disease and your illnesses, emotionally, physically, spiritually. That has to exit. That has to come through you. This is why our bodies are so amazing, is because this is the vehicle with which we get to actually get this moving forward. So, good news is everybody's on board. Good news is it gets to be expressed. The tough part is you get to look at what has to be expressed. And there's things in there that you don't want to remember. There's things in there that are going to surprise you. The cool thing is though, it's almost like if you look at it like an archaeological dig, then it becomes a little more interesting and a little more fun, right? So there's times you need to show up with your inner child and you get to get the backhoe, man. You get in that thing and you're gonna like do massive excavation, and then you hit something, and so then you jump out and you're gonna get the shovels. And then after that, it's clear that you need a little bit less of an aggressive piece of equipment, and you get out the toothbrushes, and then you're down there with the brushes and you're really getting into it. Now, not everything needs that kind of a process, but you got to understand that there is that necessity. You've got to be flexible and fluid in that. You may have an inner child that has got this massive memory that is attached to a network of issues, and releasing the one thing is going to open up that dam, but it's also going to relieve like an incredible amount of things, like things you may be terrified about. Like talking in public could be one of them, or whatever. I did a post yesterday, or the day yesterday, I think it was, where, oh yeah, it was yesterday, because I had actually worked with my inner child. I had this thought come up about, as I'm getting ready for this thing and I'm thinking about it, and I had this, I'm not good enough. And it wasn't just a thought, it was like I could feel the difference. I've worked with this inner child enough that I know the difference between passing thought or passing thought, pay attention. But this was kind of a feeling too. I could actually, it was like really, it was rooted. I could tell it was rooted in something. So I sat down and I just got quiet and got into a meditative stance and space. And I asked the child, I'm like, what is this one rooted to? What is this emotion right here that is coming up? What's this rooted to? And she popped me back into a memory when I was 9 years old that was really like jarring to me, and it had everything to do with my 9-year-old physical body and my mom reacting to me. I think I was getting ready to get in the tub, so I was naked. There was something that had happened, and I just remember her reaction and the look on her face. There was something that was really offensive to her. I know what it was, and I remember it now. There was some self-exploration going on at 9 years old. I'm like, what is a vagina, right? It's just like almost like, well, like, as I'm getting undressed and everything, maybe I had an itch I needed to scratch, or I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that what she showed me was this moment in time where I was naked, and she had walked into when I was actually exploring something, and she was fully appalled at what she saw. I don't know why she had the reaction she did. All I know is I locked that into me at 9 years old. Ooh, I can feel that in my heart right now. That I was not safe. I was not safe. And I was not safe in front of a woman. I was not safe with another female. And as quickly as that came, it probably left as quickly, or she probably just kind of, like rushed, turn on the tub or get in the shower or whatever. I didn't get the next part. What I needed to see was that crystallized moment of how that 9-year-old me had locked in. I had done something horrendously wrong. Now, I hadn't, but that was the interpretation of the look on her face, of how I was seeing it, from what I was doing innocently. I didn't even know I was probably doing anything innocent, like at all. But something like that had affected me up until yesterday. And it wasn't a loud voice, but it was still this voice that was saying, I'm not good enough. And it got brought up because I think I had like 25, 26 responses to this masterclass, this free masterclass. I had you got the link, and in the link it was directing you here to this page. I didn't want you to get lost on my other page. I needed you to come here because this is where the live was. So registering for that, and as I was seeing this, I'm like, that is a lot of women. And I know that inner child, that 9-year-old was going, that's way too many people. That, whoa, I don't know about that one. And for some reason, it hadn't come up before. Now it was ready to come up this time, and I sat with her. I got the memory, and we did some reframing in this particular situation. And oh my gosh, it was one of the most beautiful personal experiences I have had in a while, actually, with an inner child. There's a couple of ways we can work with inner children. In this case, we did a reframe. In this case, I saw what she had completely crystallized and frozen in, and as I kind of cried through that and was vulnerable and raw and kind of just expressed those emotions, like, whoa, that was crazy wild. I sat there and I thought, well, what would I do as a mom now? If I was the mom walking in on me and I saw that, with all the body positivity that I now have been exposed to as an adult, wasn't super popular back in the 70s, right? I know that I would have done this differently. I would have actually said, what do hey, what are you doing? And hey, did you know that this is called a vagina? Hey, did you know that there's actually more to that? Almost like it's called a vulva, and it actually is inside your body. And I know that she'd be confused, but what I did was I'm like, well, feel your eyeball. You can see your eye, but if you feel around your eyeball, there's more in there, right? And just make it really just kind of like, there's more to your body there. Cool. That's about all a 9-year-old really wants to know. Really, even a 5-year-old is kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Wow, that's interesting. And then when she's ready to actually explore more of her own physical bodiness, right? And especially as she gets older, and as 12-year-olds and whatever, 11-year-olds, when you have your period and you start growing hair and all of that, that could have set the stage. That situation could have been handled differently, and so I did handle it differently with that child. I actually just said, there you go, this is just part of your body. I just felt this entire relaxing go through. It's like it washed off of me, and I went, okay, I know that feeling. I've done this enough to know that that's gone. That was there. So that inner child is not present in a terrified state as I'm talking to you right now. But she did come up before this happened, and she was tapping me on the shoulder saying, super uncomfortable with this idea, just saying, right? So this is where we set ourselves up with these blocks, actually. So you have this inner child. Had I not jumped into that, I would still be talking to you, right? But she would be here inside of me, and I'd be nervous or shaking, or I don't know, maybe I'd be crying before it, maybe I'd be crying afterwards, but it would still be this locked emotion that only had a portion of it to be able to be released. Or I could have just gone, well, that's silly, that's no big deal, that's silly, no big deal, pushes it back again. And what happens to her? What does that signal to that inner child? She's not being heard, she's being talked over, she's being ignored, she's not important. How many of you can relate to that, at least in one part of your life? We're doing this to ourselves. It's not malicious, but we're doing that. So you wonder why this is one of the most important things you could ever do for yourself. It's because you're actually going to start validating yourself and showing yourself how precious, precious you are. I'm sorry. It's such a cool discovery to have these moments where you give yourself information where you had no idea where it came from. And suddenly you find out where it comes from, and you have this conversation with yourself. And it's not necessarily linear either. That one was a little bit of a linear one. I have an example where it wasn't so linear. Oh my gosh, this experience with my inner child. I want to share this one with you. So I was in a relationship about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, with I had a boyfriend, and there was some there was I had this, I don't know, I just had this inner angst going on around him, and it was really confusing because it didn't make sense in my mind why I would have some of the feelings that I was having. Like, they were really trying to recall what they were. It was just, they weren't positive. It wasn't depreciating. It wasn't appreciating. He was also very, very controlling and manipulative and abusive. So I'm not, I'm only bringing that in is because I didn't see it quite clear yet, right? So I was at that stage of that relationship. I can look back on it and go, holy cow, that was a good teacher. And oh, that was a hard one. So I'm still in the learning phase, right? I sense that something's not right. I can kind of see that, he's not treating me well. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Anyway, there's just these things, but there's still even more that's going on that was just, I felt like I was punishing myself, right? And so I was actually driving. I was this was when I was one of those trips where I was driving for a jewelry show, and also for, I don't know, I was going to be doing some teaching too. So this was going to be like a long drive. I think it was from here to Santa Fe, New Mexico. So it was like 10 hours. I had time. And this stuff was coming up about him. And I'm adept enough now at my inner child work that this is the way the conversation went. I'm driving. Angst is going on. I'm frustrated. I'm confused. And I was just like, whoa, all right, everybody to the safe space. Now, let me jump over here and tell you, to really create a safe area, a safe place for you to talk to your inner child, that's key. So write that down if you have this, create a safe space. And I'm going to tell you, the safe space is going to be a place that you feel safe to go to in your mind. I'm going to suggest that you create one. I'm going to suggest that it's possible that some of the places that you love and that you feel safe in may have some current life memories tagged with it that might not be you're really safe for all your parts, right? So family cabin, probably not a good idea, right? Even though you had great experiences there. I went to Lake Powell all the time growing up. Did not choose Lake Powell, even though I absolutely love the water there and everything. What I chose to do is I chose to create my own mountain scene. It's not even of mountains that I know, right? So there's no way that I can associate any bad memories with any of that. There's no way any of my parts can be triggered by that. And we got to play together. So I created a safe space. And from here forward, anytime I wanted to talk to any of my parts, I would just gather them. So now I've got every age, right? I'm 55, so I'm going to have parts that are from infant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to me now. And when I'm really perplexed, I'm gathering everybody because I don't know what's going on. So this is the way the conversation went. I'm driving and I says, all right, everybody hit the safe space. I've got a question. And in my mind, it can happen a number of different ways. I either have this big gathering, or because they know the drill now, 5 show up. And it's like, oh, y'all are the ones that have something to do with this. Okay, cool. And in this particular case, there were two that showed up. And I'm like, who has an issue with this, right? And sometimes you'll have them raise their hand like I do. I got an issue with this. I have something to say about it. And it's just this like, cool, come tell me what's going on. So in this case, two of them raised their hand, or two of them showed up, and I said, what is going on? Like, I don't get this. Now I want you to pay attention to the dialogue here, because there's something that I think is really, really important. Excuse me. I'm going to take a drink here. Okay. So what happened was one of them became like a spokesperson. I think she was about, let's see, if I remember right. I don't know. I think I had like a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old show up. They were younger. But they both agreed on this particular thing. And one of them just looked at me and she goes, "You're so mean." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean I'm mean?" She goes, "You're just so mean to him." And I said, "Oh, okay. Tell me a little more." Right? I'm not going to defend myself. I want to know what's going on. Right? So she's going to tell me this. And she says, "You treat him just like you treat your dad." Now, that phrase is where I want you to stop and pause. I'm going to repeat that. She said to me, "You treat him the way you treat your dad." Now I've got two places I can go. I can either ask her, "How do I treat my dad?" Or I could ask her what I did ask her, because what came out to me like the biggest red flag ever was the words, "your dad." That told me right there that we had a definite separation. That told me loads of information. She was viewing me as separate from herself. She didn't even know we were the same person. She was witnessing everything that I was doing in this relationship as me, as this individual, me as this woman that was being mean to this boyfriend, treating him the way the way I was treating my dad, or had treated my dad. So that clue really was where I took the conversation. I says, "Oh, really? Tell me more about who your dad is." And she sat and she thought and she says, "Well, my dad," and she described him. And I says, "Okay." And I said, "Tell me how I treat my dad." And so she described that. I said, "All right." And then I looked at her after she was able to get this out, right? Just tell me these other things. And I said, "Did you know that we have the same dad?" And like my entire system went on pause. Like she sat there and was like, "What?" And instead of arguing, it's like all the tumblers in her little mind were like, they all just lined up, and it was like, "Oh my God, you're right." Where she was having those gaps of seeing herself connected to her dad and seeing me as not even the same individual suddenly got filled in, and everything diffused. It was one of the most powerful moments. And I'm driving still, by the way. This is actually, it's not that I was sitting there crying and all of this stuff. Again, I'm doing this enough that conversations like this really can happen while you're driving. I didn't have to go into a meditative state, so don't think that I was, altered that way or anything like that. It was just, I have opened up that bridge that my inner parts, my inner children, if they're not integrated, get to cross that bridge. We get to actually have that open channel. And so I discovered something in that experience. I integrated that part, so that part suddenly became a part of me. So now there's not a separateness. It's another fragment, like that's a win. And I also got to ask more questions, because from there, once she realized we were the same individual and we had the same dad, then I could swing back and say, "Okay, now how does this relate to this boyfriend situation?" And what then happened was we both got to see more of how he was manipulating and abusing and controlling, and actually doing a lot of the similar things that my dad had done to me throughout my life. So we're drawing parallels now that we are unified. It was super, super powerful. Incredibly, incredibly powerful. So those are two examples right there. You know, I had a situation with my mom crystallized, and I had a situation with a boyfriend that was actually connected to my dad. There is no way I would have had any idea about this thing with my dad and this part that didn't even see me as, or see herself as part of me, not without asking those questions. So you don't necessarily have to be in therapy to really get this refined. You need to have a desire. It's kind of interesting to know that you can look through the same eyes and see life in completely different ways. And integration is actually getting that all together in a container or in a space where a conversation can start happening. It doesn't mean everybody has to agree with each other yet. It just means we can have a common conversation, right? That is exciting. That is why inner child work is so exciting to me. It's so powerful to me. This is why you can actually reframe your perceptions. I just gave you an example of how that perception got reframed from inside, right? I had the perception, it cleared it up for me, but that inner child that didn't even think we were the same person all of a sudden was like, oh, there's a reframe, right? One of the other things that's really important about this is if you have a part of you or lots of parts of you that are really identifying with victimhood because they're still frozen in a victimized situation, not judging it, it's just something happened to that child, to you. It had a traumatic effect. Could have been like as simple as my mom walking in on me in the bathroom, or as brutal as some of the other things I experienced, right? We all have trauma. And may I just say right now, trauma is an experience. It's a physical and chemical experience in these biological bodies. So to be honest, trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma. What lights it off, what sets it off, what creates those synapses and those chemical reactions in your body for you to go into shock, for you to go into all these other things, those can all be different. But the way you log it into your body, into your system, is going to be the same, right? So we all have trauma. We're all going to have similar ways we react to trauma. The repetitiveness is going to create some extremes. And then some other factors are going to play in here, how deep it goes. That all comes into other things. But for all intents and purposes, what I'm trying to say is we have trauma. And so when you identify in a victimized place and it doesn't get resolved, you're going to have that vibration going on in your body, okay? You're also going to, because it's resonance, right? We like to think about it's all just kind of walking around as a tone, you know, a song. We like to harmonize and it likes to feel good. So this is when we actually attract to ourselves others that have victimhood and are really vibrating and pushing out the frequency of that trauma. And so we trauma bond. And the trauma bonding actually becomes locked in and even more visceral when we start talking about it and connect with it and then stay there. I'm not saying that it's bad to connect around our trauma. I have a whole podcast over it. So it's not like that's a bad thing. What I'm talking about here as far as the bonding goes is where we start commiserating and signing off on that victimhood, you know, and we like have a cup of tea around it and we kind of like identify with it and we start really just creating community around it. And we've done this, you know, we've been doing this for a really long time. So what we're doing is we're actually moving out of it. And we all know how this feels. We're kind of feeling ourselves, you know, kind of get a little more buoyant, right? Like we want to rise out of this, and we are, and we will. But if you have an inner child locked into this trauma, locked into her victimhood, and you don't know about her, that has to be released and recognized, and it's going to keep you kind of like a sandbag on a balloon, a hot air balloon. It's going to keep you weighted until you release it. And there's a lot of ways you can release it. This is not the only way. I do know that breath work is a fabulous way to release a lot of trapped energies and trapped emotions. And I also know that alternative medicines are a really incredible way to do it, as long as you have a very effective, a very knowledgeable, clear, clean, effective shaman or medicine woman, medicine man. And as I'm talking about psychedelics, I'm talking about some other alternative medicines that are available out there. One that I really like. If you want to start working with me, one that I don't personally do, but is combo. It's the frog medicine. I have a friend that actually administers it, and man, I've had some incredible experiences with getting into my body, grounding into my body, because the trauma that I experienced, I was leaving my body so much, right? And we all have those, right? But this is one of those times that I've, in my work of my own healing, part of that is body integration. And that's a whole different subject. That's not what this is. But circling back to say that inner child work is not the only way to release this. So don't feel like this is the only thing you have to do. This is just my favorite, to be completely honest. It's something I really get. I've spent years at this formally. I started the whole not the past life regression work. That was before that. That was back in 2000. So about 2003 is when I formally started working on myself and my traumatic memories, and got into therapy. And I was there for about 8.5 years. And then I started working with other people, pulling in past lives and current life stuff. And I do have some clients now that I'm working with as far as memory recovery. So it's my jam. I get it. I understand. I know some nuances, because this is kind of a landscape that I like to traverse. Like I understand it. And I love helping people get that landscape down on their own, like really just crossing that bridge. And now you've just got this whole vista that you guys get to travel together, right? So once you're able to release a lot of these things, you're going to start having your own true values coming out and coming forward, and that's really powerful. And you're also releasing these crystallized emotions as well. So as you continue to do this, you will connect less and less with the people that are resonating in their traumas and in their victimhood, and you'll start vibrating at a higher frequency. You're bumping yourself up, and you'll be connected to and attracted to people that are a little on a higher wavelength than where you were before. So this is really powerful for you to do. So to do this, we need to begin with some curiosity. Okay, so stepping into this, again, like I said, this is not a linear thing. This is more like a game. And you want to begin this experience, this relationship, much like a game. So you want to start with some curiosity. You need to be vulnerable with yourself. You need to step in with believing yourself. And you also need to really be okay with witnessing yourself and feeling witnessed. It's a big deal to have that. So if you want to think of this more like a game, like the game of Foursquare. I don't know if you played that in elementary school. It was like my total favorite game ever. I thought it was so fun. But if you think of the box, right? You have a big box, and then you have a cross in the middle of it. So there's actually 4 boxes. Stepping into really connecting with your inner child is like giving yourself this game of Foursquare. And so in one of the squares, you're going to have the word belief. In another one of the squares, you're going to have the word trust. In another square, you're going to have the word play. And in the other square, the last one, you're going to have the word grow. Now, you're in the game, and your inner child or children, make it a big box, right? They're in the game too, right? So your inner child and you are playing this game, and you both have you're going to be passing this ball back and forth, bouncing it, right? She's going to bounce a ball to you, and your job is to be there. You're going to be there, and you're going to take that ball. This is not a game about deflection. We're not trying to get anybody out. We're not trying to bounce anybody around. This is just basically kind of a format to say she can bounce this ball into the square of belief, and that's your job. You need to believe what she's showing you. You need to believe what she's telling you. You need to believe her, okay? Don't jump into parenting mode. That's one of the worst things you can do, because it's not time for that yet. Believe first. Believe that she's even there, right? Yeah, that's the first step. So she can also, or you can also, bounce the ball into the square of trust. Developing trust in this relationship is paramount. Remember, we have spent a lifetime pushing certain emotions away, which is similar to pushing that child age away. They keep coming up to say something, but pretty soon they just are quiet, and then they start sending that energy to different ways to get your attention, which could be body ailments or, you know, other kinds of brain fogs or other things like that. So you've got to have a relationship of trust. This ball can also bounce into the square of play. Playing is going to be more like, well, tell me more. And that's like a curiosity kind of thing, but you want to be imaginative in what you're looking at. So if taking the example that I did before, where I had that child say, you're just mean to that guy, right? Having that curiosity, or having it be something that I just ask her about, is part of the playfulness. Letting it be fluid, and letting words and letting things come forward that maybe even be offensive. Like, I knew I wasn't mean to this guy, but it'd be interesting to know how she was seeing that, right? So be playful with it. Have some play in this. And I like to use the word play because kids get this. They understand playing. They understand, and they want to be in not necessarily playful, although they do. This is more of the thing where you don't have to be so rigid. You don't have to hit these steps. You don't have to do it this way, this way, and this way. It doesn't have to be defined a particular way. There was one time that I was talking to an inner child. I had another perplexing thought. I was not understanding why I had a particular attitude about something. And again, I went back into, all right, everybody gather at the safe place, right? And I says, does anybody have any information about this thing that's bothering me? And one raised her hand, and she came at me with the crazy, like, it was the weirdest thing. She says, well, the tall bad men make those rules. And I'm like, the tall bad men make those rules. And I wasn't saying it cynically, but in my mind, I'm like, what is it? What? Where did that come from? She had, you know, as a small child, she's going to see a tall man that had made some rules, and in her mind, it translated to bad. So this is the only way that she could actually bring that forward to me. And she was the one that was driving this. She was the one that was actually behind this whole uncomfortable situation that I was finding myself in, because the tall bad men were making the rules. They were the ones that were going to decide. I think it had to do with money, to be in all honesty. It was like they were the ones that had to decide who decided who made money and who didn't. And I was just like, had nothing to do with monopoly, by the way. There was a real thing that had happened where this is how she crystallized that observation. And I got to be very playful with that. Oh, tell me more about the tall bad men. You know, like, this is not my orientation. However, it was playing into my current life, and even the way I was managing money from the standpoint of, how old was she? I think she was about 6. So the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 14-year-old, like, these ages are actively playing in your life just by being them and being very, you know, like, very anchored in their perception. So be playful, right? And then you get to grow with it. The more you do this relationship and this relating, then you're going to find a relationship that grows. And this is where you can step in as a parent and you can actually set some parameters, and we can talk about that too, but you can set some parameters and you can actually say, I'm available to talk to you, or I'm going to show up and we're going to have a conversation. But this is one of those things where you don't get overrun by the child or the children. You get to be in partnership with them. So I hope what I've shared with you today has actually illustrated to you why I feel like this inner child is your best friend, the secret to really living an amazing life. Makes it a little more touchable, makes it so that bridging that gap is more realistic. You can sit in meditation, I'm going to tell you right now, just being quiet, sitting in meditation, and creating a safe space and inviting your inner child to join you there is the first step. And you can do that anytime, anywhere. You get to set that up. Have a journal with you. Write down what she says, as crazy as it might sound. Bring this relationship in, and the more you do this, the more she's actually going to like step in and go, are you real? Are you honest? Do you really mean this? All right, I'll give you a little more. You might find that she's super excited and she just blurts out everything. But you might have to build a relationship. I did. Remember that first example I told you? She was just ready to snap at me. Not a lot of trust there. I had to actually keep showing up and keep showing up and keep asking questions and demonstrating that I was really honest in all of this desire to have that relationship. So I hope that, like I said, it's answered those questions. I hope you can see how it actually helps diffuse some behaviors that have been driving you crazy. I hope that it's actually giving you some hope and some inspiration on where you can take it and how you can actually apply this in your life, starting today if you want. And by all means, if you've ever got any questions, reach out, let me know how you're feeling, tell me what you're thinking on all of this. I really am interested in creating a community here on this page, and a community of self-led healing individuals, people that are actually really engaged in what they want to do and how they want to empower themselves and heal themselves. And I use the word healing because it is a bit of a disease, dis-ease. It's a bit of an illness to have all of those trapped emotions, trapped energies, and trapped mindsets not have a place to be expressed and expelled, right? And then replaced with something that is actually more empowering and more in alignment with where you want to go in life. So I appreciate and love that you've been here with me today. It just warms my heart. This is being recorded, and I'm going to have it here on this page. You're more than welcome to visit it anytime. I do want to now let you know and introduce that I am going to be holding and offering a Bridging the Gap with Your Inner Child Mastermind workshop. So we're going to workshop it and we're going to mastermind it. We're going to have this really, really potent container that we're going to be together. And it's going to start January 5th. So next Wednesday, this container starts. And it's for 4 weeks. It's every Wednesday. We're going to meet at 11 a.m. It's going to be through a Zoom. You're going to have recordings. So if you can't jump in live, it's going to be recorded and I will be sending it out to you. It is a private container and it's a paid container. It's $444. We'll be together for 4 weeks, and then there's going to be a bonus call, a bonus Q&A call at the end of our 4 weeks together. I can already feel the potency of this container and those that are in there. It's kind of cool. I'm getting kind of giddy about the whole idea. So we're going to workshop this. We are going to talk very in depth. 1 week we're going to start with belief. We're going to start with how we can believe that the inner child is there and what she has to say. We're going to discover her. We'll go through a meditation and meet this inner child. I will be leading that. We're going to jump into trust. Some things that come up in the trust box of this game that we're putting together, that we're actually sharing with our child. We're going to learn a lot about play and pleasure, and how those kind of weave together and what that's all about and where they are in our life. And then we're going to learn more about and workshop more on growth and what we're really wanting to do and how we can really step into where we're going in our lives, how we're creating and building the new earth, and what we're doing as empowered individuals to lead our own healing. And then, like I said, we'll do a Q&A. In addition to this, if you feel called and you really want to jump in and dive a little deeper and have one-on-one work with me, I have 4 places open that I can work with people one-on-one. That's going to be an additional $888. So 444 plus if you want to do one-on-one work with me, it's 888, and the total is going to be, let's see, what did I say? I think it's 1223 for all of that. Hold on just a minute. I had this written down and I don't have it now, so I'm just going to do a quick bit of math here. 444 for the masterclass or mastermind, and then if you want to do one-on-one work with me, then it's 888, and the total is $1,332. Now, the thing that's really cool about this is I normally, if I do one-on-one works with somebody, it's $1,111 for the month. In that, when you do work one-on-one with me, you get a blend of mentorship, you get healing and activations, and then up to 4 memory recovery sessions with me. Usually, we will schedule that together, but what this is doing is it's going to build a foundation for you for self-led healing and doing some deep work that way. So if you're interested in that, I have 4 spaces open at the price to go along with the mastermind course. So if you're interested in any of that, reach out to me and let me know. I'm going to be sending out an email to those of you that did join here and jumped on that I have your email for. I'm going to let you know about the mastermind, and I will have a link that you can do some registration, and that you can, once you submit payment, then I'll have the link for the private group that we're going to have, and we get to spend the month of January together. I also have some really fun things involved or coming out for the rest of the year as well. Haven't got that quite all put together, so it'll be coming up, and I'll be announcing that in January. And I also have a live interactive group that is getting put together in February. More information is going to be coming out about that and where that's going to be. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've got a couple of women that I'm working with on that, and it'll be a lot of great time together. So let's see, I wonder if I've got any questions that I haven't seen. All right, I'm just going to be working on this really quick here, just looking to see. All right, Angela, I'm going to send you the information. Thank you, you guys. Wendy, thank you for being here. Kristen, I'm so glad you were here. Pamela, you have some work to do on the inner child. Use some very strong inner critical voice. Oh my gosh, that right there, that is such a clear example of what that inner child can do as far as the critical voice that's going on in there. Oh my God, Pamela, that's so cool. I remember my art used to be very dark. Thought initially it was dark side of my character, and I found it scary. Came to realize that my dark was my fear, not being able to see whether physically or internally. It's a very fearful place. Fear is dark. It's true. It is so true. Oh my goodness, that it's so valuable to jump in and to actually have that open up, though. You shine the light in the darkness, and it's a scary thing to do, and it's actually more scary than actually doing it. But you do have to feel it. It does come at you. So kudos there. I would love to help you. If you want to have any kind of work done together, that'd be great. You're also saying we migrate to people with similar patterns of behavior, even if it's negative. So true. So true. How many times have you found yourself bumping into, circling around to people that, have the same attitudes? Creatures of habit, definitely. We have these programs that are there at a young age. They repeat until we become, they're aware, and they don't serve a purpose. That is so true. Mackenzie. I love what you guys are saying. Your mom's room downstairs. I totally relate to not being heard, Kristen. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so beautiful. I'm so glad you understand. Mackenzie, I need to find one. I have been having a hard time doing so around here. The group I went with no longer does it. I was 15 then. Yeah. Wow, this is retreat weekends. Let's get some retreats together. Let's create community, you guys. I really think that this is an important thing for us to do. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad, Angela, that you found this live. I'm so glad that we can all work together. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so beautiful. So beautiful. Mackenzie did ask, would you say EMDR helps in a similar same way as hypnotherapy? I'm going to tell you that EMDR is effective. It's not as effective as hypnotherapy because it's not as interactive. You actually in hypnotherapy are more in control than what I understand you are with EMDR. There's a depth that you can get to with the hypnotherapy that I don't know many people that have done EMDR have actually accessed, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of if it's the duration of the sessions, or if you just if you're not quite dropped fully into that theta brainwave, if you still have to do a little bit of the beta theta back and forth. So I'm not too sure, but I know EMDR is effective for people. It's just not quite as effective as hypnotherapy. Pamela, you're saying that you do fight hypnotherapy. If it's not your jam and not your thing, then I would definitely be open to like maybe doing some breath work or some other things where you can actually really access those deep, deep, deep emotions, because that's what wants to be released, and that's what's really trying to come out, really trying to come out. That is one thing I want to say here at the end. I just want you guys to know that one of the things that we do naturally as humans is we do want to be moving things, like I said before, but we naturally want to hit this state of health. And as we hit that state of health, if we're blocked from that, we're gonna strive for it no matter what. So things that are blocking you are going to show up in a lot of different ways, and so helping that come forward and be accessed is really doing yourself a favor. So anyway, if I'm gonna close here again. Thank you so much. It's been a joy to be able to share this with you. I've got more to share. I just am excited about creating this community, and thank you for giving me time and sharing this time and space with me. So until next time, I'll see you later.